Hey there, my lovely friends. Welcome back. This week's episode, we're going to be doing a complete breakdown of the steps that I take every July to reset my spending, uh, kind of recalibrate my abundance mindset. So I'm really got my head in the right place for the rest of the year. And then just the strategies that I follow to give the second half of the year like everything I've got. So if you've been feeling a little bit like, ooh, the enthusiasm and the strategies that you were so on fire about in January have kind of gotten old, blasé, or you're feeling a little discouraged and not quite sure how you're going to meet your financial goals for the rest of the year, then definitely listen up because this training was designed for you. So for the last, I want to say, 7 years, I have been a full-time online coach, and I have helped in that time thousands of women to really take the profits from their business and not only scale their profits by, using social media as we all do and producing more income, but more importantly to take the revenue you're already making in your business and turn it into long-term savings, into estate plans that will protect your legacy and protect the people you love when you pass, and to actually build something lasting that will carry your family forward no matter what happens to you. So if you're not familiar with my work, that's a little bit of who I am and what I do. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about this concept of the mid-year reset. I love these. I have a couple of mentors who do a version of these too. And over the years, I've sort of developed my own take on this because it's so wonderful when you get to really take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Look at what's actually working for you right now in business, in your personal finances, and also what's not, and really kind of take a step back and do a reset of how can I revive my enthusiasm. So I'm going to kind of walk you through these steps, okay? And one thing I have to say before we even get started is this is not financial advice, all right? What we're going to be talking about is purely my strategy based on my own financial situation, kind of what works for me, right? And hopefully, yes, it will work for you too. That's obviously always the goal. But even if you are kind of, new to business or whatever, feel free to stick around through the rest of the training because at the very end, I'm going to be sharing a workbook with you that goes with this training. So you can also comment workbook if you're here catching the replay, comment workbook below, and I will make sure you get the PDF guide that goes with this training. All right, so we're going to just walk through the steps. These are the same steps I use every single year to reset my own financial goals for the remainder of the year. The first step is reviewing the goals you set in January. So hopefully you set some pretty clear goals at the beginning of the year for your income, your impact, just even your schedule, right? Like what did you actually want to accomplish? Now that we're halfway through, it's time to kind of pause and think to yourself, like, how far have I come? So I like to use my profit planner that I developed. You can find one on Amazon. If you are a Multiply Her Money member, you also get these sent to you in the mail every quarter. So I would pull out your planner from the beginning of the year and take a look at what were the goals you set for 2025. And if you want to share them in the chat too, we can cheer you on. I'd love to hear what were your goals that you set and how close to that goal are you now. Now, one caveat is before you start kind of spiraling about all the things that are not done yet, I want you to just take a breath, okay? And remember that progress in building wealth and honestly any goal you have in life is not linear, right? It's going to go up and down. You might find yourself taking a few steps backward before you take a big leap forward, and that is okay. That is totally normal, all right? So for example, I have a client who set a goal this year to, stick to a $3,000 a month budget. And I was like, all right, that's pretty low budget, but okay, we're going to just roll with it, right? And then she overspent. But at the same time, she did cut her food delivery spending from $600 to $250, which I think is incredible for a family of 4. And she also canceled 3 software subscriptions that she hadn't used in like ages, right? So celebrating your wins, that really matters. Giving yourself that celebratory feeling not only will help revitalize your basic purpose for why you wanted to budget in the first place, but also when we only measure ourselves by the end result, we're missing all the evidence that we are actually moving forward. So what she did accomplish, even though she didn't stick to the exact budget she wanted, what she did accomplish was she started to build a healthier spending habit, right? It's when you don't give yourself those celebratory moments that burnout really starts to creep in. Now, if you got some goals that maybe didn't just stall but actually slid backwards, don't panic, all right? Don't let your mind go there and start, these negative stories about like, I'm broken, I'm bad with money, whatever that is. But you do need a better question to ask yourself than what's wrong with me, right? Can I get some comments in the chat? I'd love to hear what are some goals you set for 2025. And for those that maybe haven't gone the direction you wanted, this is the question I want you to be asking yourself. What skill would put that outcome under my control, okay? What skill would put that outcome under my control? Because when we look at any outcome that you're trying to accomplish, maybe you're trying to hit your first 6-figure net worth, you're trying to pay off debt, you're trying to secure funding to launch an idea, whatever that looks like for you, instead of asking like, what's wrong with me when it's not going the way you want, or what's wrong with my idea when it's not going the way you want, instead focusing on the skill that you need to be developing. Because only when we have these skill sets actually mastered can the outcome come back under your control, right? Anything that feels like it's outside your control, there's something about that subject you either don't understand or something you can't do. You can't apply it, right? Like maybe you've learned about something, like you've learned about social media, you learned about marketing, you've learned about sales or learned about investing and budgeting, but can you actually apply it? Right? Have you drilled it enough times? Have you turned it into a unconscious habit, a good, healthy habit, right, that you can actually stick to? So focusing on building your skills is a lot more high vibe than asking yourself questions like, am I broken? What's wrong with me? Etc. Okay, so this is my key question that I always ask myself anytime I'm starting to get a little bit discouraged. Identify the gap between where you are and what you're capable of learning next, okay? What is the next thing I can learn that will actually bring this goal closer to present time, right? Now, the other thing that you can do is to just take a couple minutes to practice being gentle with yourself. Center your thoughts around gratitude for how far you've come, for what you've learned, for, anything that's more of a high vibe thought. And it really boils down to just being your own best friend. I've found that oftentimes when, if you have a really close friend come and tell you what the thoughts that are going through your head, right? These intrusive thoughts like, I'm not good with money, I'll never get out of debt, like all those negative thoughts. Imagine if a friend said that to you. The first thing you would do probably is you would gently encourage them, right? Like if you're being a good friend, that's how you act. So try talking that way to yourself, and you'll be surprised what an impact that can have on your own state of mind. Now, if you have a team, a partner, anyone else that helps you, also take a look at what they've accomplished in the first half of the year and taking a moment now to really express gratitude for them. Really thank them for what they've done, acknowledge it, maybe even reward it. You have like bonuses, monetary rewards, or, bring them flowers, like whatever that looks like for them. But really taking a moment now to make sure your team and the people who are supporting the power that you're generating realize how much you actually value them, all right? All right, step number 2, reconnecting with your 3 to 5 year vision, financial vision. So I really want you to take a step back here, pull back the lens, okay? Because one thing that I have found more than anything else is that it's super easy for entrepreneurs to do what I call the entrepreneurial two-step, right? The two-step is a dance move with a partner where you do this little box and you just go in a circle. You just keep going in a circle, going in a circle, going in a circle. And when we get too stuck in the day-to-day, it's so easy to do the entrepreneurial two-step and find yourself at the end of the entire year no further along in your goals than when you started. And that's why I think it's really important to have these like kind of checkpoints. I do this every quarter, and of course at the mid-year point as well, of reconnecting with my 3 to 5 year goal. What's the long-term goal? Ask yourself, like, what has to happen the rest of this year to make my 10-year goal, my 5-year goal, my 3-year goal actually possible, and really break it down. All right, now it's okay if you haven't really thought that way in a while, because life has a way of getting loud, right? But if you don't have a personal vision that's pulling you forward, oftentimes your money will keep getting hijacked by everything that feels urgent. And then you struggle to build savings. You struggle to contribute to your 401k or your IRA, right? You struggle to actually build wealth and invest because you feel like, right? What happens is we feel like it's an emergency, another emergency, another emergency. But really, truly, what's actually happening here is you don't have a personal vision that's pulling you forward. And so the universe keeps throwing things at you to spend money on. All right, but you'll be amazed. It's like mindset comes before skill set, right? If you get your head in the right place and you really have a personal vision that's pulling you forward, oftentimes you won't get distracted, and you'll actually find that you're encountering less financial emergencies. So really pause here and check in with your long game. What do you want your life to look like 5 years from now? Not just what you think you want, but what do you want? Not just what other people are telling you you should want, but what do you actually want, okay? And again, you guys can put them in the chat if you want. I'd love to hear, is a fully paid home? Maybe you want a retirement fund that doesn't make you feel behind. Maybe you want to create a trust fund for your kids, or you want to be completely out of debt in the next 3 to 5 years, right? What would it take for you to feel like you had actually accomplished something? All right, step number 3 is check in on your budget and adjust it to reflect reality. A lot of women don't ever actually look at their budget. They say that they budget, but when you ask them to like show it to you, they can't. Right? And I understand, it's like just one more administrative exercise sometimes, right? But this is really a good pausing moment to take a look at how much you're actually spending. So I would recommend opening your bank account and actually look at April, May, June, add up what you spent, right? If you haven't done your bookkeeping in a while, look at your bookkeeping. Ask your bookkeeper for a report or generate one yourself, right? And really take a look at, where is my money actually going? And you might find that you're surprised at what you've been able to do, and you also might find that it's a little bit hard to confront because you didn't realize how much you were spending on food, eating out, or subscriptions or whatever. What I would recommend is don't judge what you find. Okay, this is really going to get you the best results if you practice being gentle with yourself. This isn't a moment to get really harsh and critical of yourself. It's a moment to take this opportunity to meet the future version of you. Who do you actually want to be, right? Maybe you set a goal to spend $800 a month on groceries, and it's actually, you find you're spending like $1,100. Okay, that doesn't mean you're bad with money. It just means you're human and there's been inflation, right? So now you get to decide, is that the version of me I want to carry with me for the rest of this year? Or do I want to take this moment to meet a stronger, wealthier, higher vibe version of myself, and invite that version of me to step forward, right? So you'd be surprised, but money, I have found, is 80% mindset, 10% strategy, and then 10% just having the audacity to even try it all. So if you are, maybe you're not perfect at budgeting, maybe you've been trying to invest and you find that you did not contribute as much as you wanted to in the first half of this year. All right, you know what? I want you to celebrate that you actually had the audacity to even go after that goal at all. All right. Now, step 4 is reviewing your financial preparedness plan. And I understand, like, nobody gets excited about emergency funds. These are not sexy, and I get it, right? It doesn't give you this thrill to be like, oh, I have, an emergency fund. No, like, people get excited about being debt-free. People get excited about, building wealth, about leaving a legacy for their kids. They don't get excited about emergency funds. But they do get excited when something bad happens and you actually have funds to cover it. That's when emergency funds become actually fun, right? So I want you to ask yourself this question. If my income stopped today, how long could I stay calm, right? Would it be like 30 days, 90 days? Could you stay calm for 6 months because you had enough in savings without having to touch your retirement plan, without having to, take out a loan or liquidate your assets? How long could you stay calm because you had an emergency fund? Things happen, right? And it's really important to actually have something to fall back on. And here's something I hear all the time from women is like, oh, I don't want to think about emergency funds because I really want to stay positive. Or I'm more into like intuitive planning and I just trusting the process. I'm trusting that the universe will give me what I want. And that's fine. I'm not saying that optimism is bad. Obviously, I think the more optimism you have, the better you're going to survive in life. Personally, that's my belief. But hope without preparation is really just like a beautiful wrapping on denial, okay? Being prepared, being financially prepared for the worst scenario is not paranoia. It's actually love and taking radical responsibility for the people around you. So here's some questions I like to ask myself every July. First of all, what are the biggest financial risks in my life right now? So think like, okay, there could be a slow season in my business. If you are employed, you could ask yourself, like, what would happen if I lost my job tomorrow? Or if I was, if we had layoffs, right? Where everybody else is also searching for the same job, right? If you're in business for yourself, like, what would happen if you lost a big client right now, right? So these are just good questions to ask yourself in July, and make sure you actually have enough of an emergency fund to cover these things. So again, do you have an emergency fund? How long could you remain calm if something bad happens? And then how much life insurance do you have? So if we're talking like real worst case scenario, if something happened to you, would the people in your life be okay? Not just your spouse, not just your kids, but as business owners, we have our employees are relying on us for income. We have clients who might have prepaid for services. Like, how are we taking care of those things in our will and in our life insurance and our estate plan? Could your partner or key employees or a best friend find the documents that they would need without having to panic and run around if something happened to you? Okay, so these are the kind of questions, again, that we want to be asking ourselves in July. Just doing this little reset. Is my break glass in case of emergency plan written down, or is it just floating around in your head, right? So ask yourself, like, if something happened to me tomorrow, is there anywhere that someone could go to know exactly how to pick up, the clients who got dropped, pick up where you left off, and just like keep your business running either until you come back or, worst case scenario, until your family is prepared to sell or liquidate that business. All right. Question number 5 is, I like to really, or rather step number 5, I should say, is get honest about your debt. Like, really confront it. Again, I see a lot of women who don't track how much debt they have. They're not using a debt tracker. I have a debt tracker I absolutely love. So you can comment the word debt if you want, and I will send it to you. It's one I just found online, and I'm happy to send you the link. But here's the thing. It's really, how do I put this? It's very common that I find for women to say they want to get out of debt, but not ever actually look at their debt. Like, they say, I want to get out of debt, but then you ask questions like, what's your interest rate? Oh, I don't know. Or I have 5 cards and some of them I don't know. Like, how often are you actually looking at it, right? Confront means to face without flinching. So if we don't confront how much money we have in debt, how much our interest rate is, it's really hard to find solutions if we're not even looking, right? So taking a look at this time of year is really good because it helps you to, again, like, reset your money habits, reset your spending, maybe even look for solutions like balance transferring to a 0% card, or, doing the snowball method. Like, there's so many different strategies out there. So ask yourself this: what is my strategy the rest of this year to reduce that burden that debt is in my life? All right. And then one thing I will say too is, like, don't obsessively focus on being debt free. It's important to do the math and ask yourself, like, okay, let's say I had an unexpected windfall. I got an extra, let's say, $5,000. Okay, so maybe you sold a really big job, or maybe you inherited some money, or you won some money, or whatever, right? Let's just pretend for a minute that you got an extra $5,000. A lot of women say automatically, like, oh, I would immediately put that towards my debt. But when we sit down and we crunch the numbers and we do the math, we find that, sure, she could save like a few $100s in interest if she paid off that debt right now. But if she took that same $5,000 and used it as a down payment on like a rental property, she could be set for life in a few years, right? So don't get caught in the trap of what I call Ramsey baby stepism, okay? You have to do what it makes the most sense for you. And usually what makes the most sense is to crunch the numbers and actually see what is the best use of this dollar amount that I have. Yes, in some cases it will be paying off high interest credit cards, but that's not always the case. And sometimes obsessively focusing on just that will make your journey towards financial freedom take 10 times longer. All right, step number 6, check your tax strategy before the year gets away from you. Again, I know a lot of women who focus on taxes in April and they focus on taxes in December, but they're not really following a strategy mid-year to make sure that they are taking every deduction and spending where they need to spend so that they can actually have a tax-free or low tax liability at the end of the year. So ask yourself these questions. How much money have I brought in so far this year? And based on that number, do I have a pretty solid idea of what I'll owe in taxes? If you don't know in July what you're going to owe next January, this is a really good time to, pay $250 to your CPA to sit down, or your tax strategist to sit down and really do a tax strategy session with them. If you're only working with a tax preparer, someone who doesn't do tax strategy, reach out to me and I will happily jump on a tax strategy call with you and walk you through the steps to make sure you actually know what your deductions are, know what you need to do, and know how much you're probably going to owe by the end of the year. All right? Okay, now the next step is invest. And again, I see so many women tell me oh, I'm waiting to have more money before I start investing. And you're really missing the point, because you can get started with literally $1, okay? And time in the market is more important than trying to time the market, all right? Time in the market. So if you wait even a couple months, you've already lost opportunities for growth. If you are just barely making ends meet and you have only an extra $5 or $10 a month that you can spend, put that $5 or $10 towards your contribute to your IRA, your 401k, whatever your investment advisor is telling you to do, but put that money in the market, all right? Because the amount of time you have in the market is more important than how much you're contributing. I had a gal the other day who I was sitting down with her. She's in her 50s. She wants to retire by age 65, and she is very behind, very, very, very behind. And just using a simple calculator, I showed her that, we could increase her contributions to $1,500 a month. And this woman is not wealthy, right? She has a decent salary. She makes, I think, around $75,000 a year, but she does not have even close to that she could contribute, right? But even if we bumped up her contributions to $1,500 a month, it's still she would be behind. She still would not be able to retire on time. But if we kept her contributions exactly the way they are, which she's contributing I think it's around $200 a month right now. If we just left her contributions alone, right, even at that very small number, and we focused instead on improving her investment strategy, moving the needle on how much return on investment she's getting. So instead of targeting 7% per year, which is like pathetic, right? Like the stock market, the S&P 500 did like 25% last year, right? So like 7% is what a lot of wealth managers are targeting, and it's pretty low actually. So if we just focused on like building her skills so she could manage her own portfolio and targeted even as little as like 10% growth, she saw immediately, just using a calculator, that would have greater impact between now and age 65 than moving her contributions from $200 to $1,500 a month. You would think that like moving from $200 to $1,500 would make such a huge difference, but it didn't. I showed her, right? I will show you too. You want to jump on a call? I will show you the math. Like, having more money is not the answer to building wealth. The answer to building wealth is learning the skills of how to invest and what to invest in, so you don't just get these mediocre returns. So again, you don't invest because you have wealth. You invest because you want to build it, okay? Starting small is still starting. So here's what I recommend you do, okay? If you already have an investment account, start funding it, okay? If you've already funded it, did you actually invest those funds in something, or are they just sitting in there like a 0% savings account? If your investments are sitting in cash, uninvested, then start investing them, all right? Even $100 a month that's contributing consistently and properly invested can add up in a way that $0 never will, right? 0 times a million is still 0, right? So if you're feeling a little bit like overwhelmed or intimidated by investing, you're not alone. A lot of women feel that way, but we can't use confusion as a reason to stay stuck. Use it as a signal that it's time to ask for help. All right. So again, I hope that this has been helpful for you. I really want to stress that when it comes to doing a kind of like financial mid-year reset, it's these small little decisions that make a big difference. The decision to sit down and actually confront your budget, right? The decision to sit down and invest $5 more a month and really learn the skill to actually buy the right investments, right? Not just throw it into the S&P, not just throw it into whatever your Uncle Bobby says, right? Like, actually learn the skill of how to do a fundamental analysis, how to do a technical analysis, and use those two tools, use those two skills to buy the right investments. That's what's going to make the biggest difference. So it really is these quiet decisions. It's not like drastic things that need to change in most cases, all right? So this is your challenge for this week. I want you to book your own mid-year money day. So it could be a weekend day, or maybe you're going to take a day off work, whatever makes the most sense for you. But pull out your calendar right now and set aside 90 minutes this week when you can tackle this list of 7 things. Make it fun. You want to light a candle, pour your favorite drink, whatever that looks like for you, but take the time to actually do these things and let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know afterwards what you got out of it, all right? I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Happy July, and I will talk to you next week.